But let's establish this. We're talking about Omnath being wet. We can establish that's true. This isn't a magic discussion. It's a water discussion. Water as a substance is not wet. End of discussion. Not wet.
Hey everyone, welcome back to From the Vault podcast. It's your boys Dylan and Trent.
Heyo, I'm back.
And we're joined by producer Connor on the Connor cam.
Hello.
Hello, Connor. Hello.
We're back here.
We're here for another episode of hanging out, talking about tabletop from the perspective of a store owner and store worker and
the working class.
And the working class. Yeah, you wage cut.
I'm just
sorry. It wasn't in the first 7 seconds. We're fine, YouTube.
Just bleep that one out. He's not abusing me, I promise. Not emotionally or physically. Yeah, look, I love video games. Look at me. I love all games. I love gaming. I love war games. I love card games. You know me. I love community building. Everything. I love you guys. You know what? I love you, the viewers. More than any of that, first of all.
And if you love us, make sure you click like on the video and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, and that helps support the channel as it gets in front of more eyeballs, which makes everything better. Ring the bell, get notified every time a new video goes live.
Really cool, really cool. Costs you nothing, takes 3 seconds. We really appreciate it, and it does genuinely help us grow.
Ready to jump on the news?
Absolutely.
Let's talk about some of the awesome news for this week.
Born ready.
Privateer Press has officially announced Mark 4 of their War Machine and Hordes. There are some big changes to the rules.
Yes.
Let me just run through some of them now that have been floating around. There is, we have a full integration with Hordes and War Machine now.
Because it was like kind of 50% integration.
Yeah, it was like Warcaster and Warmaster, and now it's just their commanders. They're just commanders.
And the straight up game, it's all basically now under the one game almost.
Yeah.
It's that integrated. It's all one.
There is command cards, a new mechanic about adding in special abilities on the cards.
Because they already have, for reference in War Machine, like you already have cards for your units and what they do.
Yeah.
But these are going to be like cards that give you like bonus abilities, almost akin to like, not mechanically, but somewhat like it in Star Wars Legion, where you use your initiative cards and they do a thing.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, but it won't necessarily affect your initiative.
They've removed facing.
Oh.
Thank God.
Thank God. In our Year Lord 2023, they removed facing.
And free strikes are also gone too.
Yep.
Which means like those attack opportunities aren't slowing down the game.
Yep.
So they're just some of the changes. You can check them all out at the privateerpress.com website. And I do believe they've already put up the Mark IV army sets for order.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
So,
I've always loved War Machine aesthetically. We've talked about this at length. I love War Machine. I love Hordes. I love the quality of the minis as well. They're really cool.
Very strong, like Etherpunk.
Yeah, it's got very strong Warcraft 3 vibes.
Yeah,
it's very like early Blizzard design, very early StarCraft design stuff. It's very like it puts heroic scale. It puts the Warhammer heroic scale to shame. Yeah, it almost feels like true heroic scale. Yeah. Like the models are great, both fantasy and sci-fi, and they all look awesome. It's one of these things where I think this is great that they're obviously cutting down these mechanics. I did notice that the game was full of bloat. I didn't play it too much myself. I played it years and years ago at a Queensland Northern Knights, which is a name Connor might actually know. And they were a great group. I played a bit of War Machine with them, and that was great fun. But outside of that, couldn't really keep getting into it. And when you get involved with other games that are already very complex, things like Warhammer and such, something has to be sacrificed. And I'm glad that I can finally pick this game back up because that sounds amazing.
I played a little bit of it back in Mark II, but unfortunately, I think one of the big problems with Warmahordes, like War Machine and Horde, is that they released Mark III like the day before Warhammer 8th edition.
Yeah, it's
like 40k 8th edition, and 40k 8th edition was such a monumental change to the fundamental element of Warhammer 40,000.
It was a new game.
It was an entirely new game, and it brought people like me back into the hobby because I was essentially leaving 40k at that point. I was like, I'm kind of over this.
The Tyrannies were like kind of perma-packed up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then 8th edition dropped, and I dropped Warmahordes.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think 8th edition did a lot of really good stuff for the game of Warhammer, and that's where I did a lot of stuff that actually came out around that time. I remember like the Fallout Wasteland Warfare actually released around the first stuff released around 8th edition Warhammer, and took a lot of the news. So I don't see a lot of those games that were big around then competing. But yeah, it's good. War Machine's a great game. That's all I want to say. You should play it. Just give it a shot.
Probably gonna dig my old Warjacks out and see if I can have another run at the new rules.
Yeah, I've got the Trent's not good with names, okay, guys, whether it be War Machine, Magic, anything. But I played a group of Templars that are all about setting fire themselves and others.
Oh, yes.
Menoth?
Menoth, maybe?
Menoth, yeah.
Menoth? I think it's Menoth, yeah.
Yeah, the Protectorate or something.
Yes, the Protectorate of Menoth, yeah.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed that faction. Felt like it was doing a lot of unique stuff. Felt very Malifaux-y in the sense that like I had my faction, it was doing its very faction thing. Very cool. So I'd get behind it. Sorry, can you bring back up that browser page, Connor? I like that look of the what's that faction above Orgoth? That faction is Signar.
Yeah, Signar Storm Legion. Yeah. So they've kind of like adjusted how the factions work now too.
Yep.
So Signar is like the basic like blue and gold Aetherpunk like faction. I believe I had a couple of Signar Warjacks.
Yep. But like I just love this. Again, it's got that kind of, it reminds me of Space Marines, right? Where it's got that Templar Knights aesthetic, but then it's also got this cool like robot aesthetic, and God, those minis are really nice.
Yeah, they're definitely changing it up to something like they're giving it a lot more flavor into the minis too, which I'm really happy about.
That's what I was gonna say. So much character in those minis, right? And I think they've always had that kind of character. I was trying to like land on that with the heroic stuff, right? Where I'm like, yeah, look at that. Oh, I really like. You know what? I'm definitely okay. Let me quickly talk about this. To me, and I think that I watch a guy called Eons of Battle on YouTube, Jay from Eons of Battle, and he says a lot of stuff that's like basically nonsense garbage, right? He says a lot of like nonsense crap. No, I kid you not. I love him, but he says a lot of like nonsense crap. But one thing he said very recently, which I thought was really, really interesting, was that minis agnostic games are cool, and they need to exist in the greater ecosystem of games, right?
Yep.
And they not having it, like if you couldn't have that kind of minis agnostic kind of idea, it would stifle creativity like crazy. It's very creative to create games that don't have their own minis. But there's something about minis in a universe, and it's all of it. It feels like it's all of it. You want to be wowed by a story and characters and amazing sculpts for these totally unique concepts, or at least like variably unique concepts. So you want this kind of. I like that War Machine aesthetically pulls me in because I think that's one of the most important things. I think that's why Warhammer even works, because it doesn't matter how much mechanically, and let's be honest, 9th edition as a game has its faults, and 8th edition had definitely they had to introduce obscuring first of all, because 8th edition had its faults. But everyone plays Warhammer, and it's never been about the game. I mean, people play the game, but it's not about the game. It's because people want to be wowed by Blade Guard veterans and Eradicators and Redemptor Dreadnoughts. They want to be wowed by these awesome models like Vashtor the Archifey, or Tarion Demon Primarch of Nogel.
Look, I never played Tyranids for the mechanics. I played Tyranids because I like to stomp things with big bugs.
Artifacts are so cool, alright?
And you can't tell me otherwise.
I'm from Buenos Aires and I say kill them all. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you get dragged in by it. So for me, the Signar, I'm saying, sorry, let me make my point clear. Seeing Signar, as Connor was bringing that up earlier, awesome. Like, when I saw that new box, I'm like, that is so freaking cool.
I actually just noticed there was one down the bottom there. It was like the Dusk Iron something.
Yeah, Dusk Iron.
House Kalis. Sorry.
Kalis. Which is very cool.
That's very dark.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if something can grab you so quickly, it's probably going to be fun.
Yeah.
And that's where Malifaux was for me.
We're gonna look this up.
Yeah, we're gonna bring this up. We're gonna pull this up from home.
Yeah.
I'm loving these Kador minis, so.
Yeah.
Oh, Connor, play some.
Mother Kador. Yeah.
You and I get some games in, dude. I'd love to anytime.
I dug out my old Warjacks recently.
Oh my god, what? Yes, I actually really like, and I don't think they are from War Machine. I really liked the Necrons. They're not called the Necrons. They're called
Cricks.
The Cricks.
Yeah.
I don't have any Cricks models, but if I could play Cricks, I think that's such a cool aesthetic.
Yeah.
Cricks was always what I looked at with War Machine and went like, as a young kid at the ages of 11 and 10, with ice cream money, wanting to buy a $50 Warjack. Mum being like, "Are you a fool? Are you an idiot? Who do you think you are?"
Instant gratification. Have a Maxibon.
Has a Maxibon, and I'm like, "All right, Mum, this will do, mother." But the point is being like, that's what pulled me in. So I'd probably go into. I think even though I do like that new, the new box for that old faction, I think Cricks is where I'll probably go back to because they're really cool. And don't pull that up because I want people at home to look that up. No spoilers. They're amazing.
All right, next.
No, they're not like Necrons. I'm stupid. Yeah, I just thought about it twice. I was like,
they're probably closer to. They're probably closer to Eldar.
Yeah, I just saw silver and green. My brain's like the energy is green. It's Gauss. They're like Necrons.
All right, so next piece of news: Lord of the Rings: Tales of Middle Earth is coming for Magic the Gathering in June, and we have to talk about the elephant in the room on that. The collector's edition prices.
I think it's called an Oliphant. I don't think
an
it's called,
Oliphant. Yeah. Sorry, we have to talk about the Oliphant. Yeah. The Oliphant on the Pelennor Fields.
The Warmahordes of Harad in the room.
In the room.
You know, a Warmahordes of Harad comes with its own room.
It does, yeah. Where you can fit more men of Harad on it.
Yeah. That's a really like small thing actually. Everyone at home. That doesn't mean anything, but it's cool.
Look it up on Games Workshop. Anyway, the the Lord of the Rings set details have all come out. We've got all the pricing up for it. And unfortunately, the collector boosters are insane. So the draft boosters have a similar price to your remastered sets, your Dominaria remastered and your Time Spiral remastered. Sure. The extra like 20% to 30% price difference is likely licensing, and that doesn't surprise me. It's the same deal with the Commander decks. They're the same price as the Universes Beyond Warhammer 40,000 ones, which again,
oh my lord,
licensing doesn't surprise me. But the collector boosters are insane. So just to give you an idea of peek behind the curtain here, right? The prices we pay for booster boxes are obviously less than what you pay as a consumer because we have to make money on that. That's how commerce works. Sorry to burst the bubble on that one. That's how commerce works.
Dylan's podcast of explaining the basics of commerce.
Let me tell you the basics of retail.
Yeah,
but
that's how economy works.
We sell collector booster boxes for around $490 because they're quite expensive for us to get.
Unless they're double masters too.
Unless they're double masters too. Actually, no, they're probably a little bit cheaper because there's only 4 boosters in that. Anyway, the Lord of the Rings set, like the price for a full collector booster for us is above $500. That's our price.
Yeah, as in cost.
As in cost price for the store.
Yeah.
That already has a wholesale discount. It is above $500 Australian.
Then we need to ask egregious numbers to sell that at a profit.
Yeah.
By definition. We're not going to get into that obviously, but that's by definition. So this is again hurting stores like ours a lot when it's cardboard.
Yeah.
Because it almost feels like we're reaching 30th anniversary issues. They're real cards.
But they're real cards. They're
And
playable cards. Look, they're still cheaper than a
cards.
30th anniversary, I'll be honest with you. So, and they're still playable. So, you know,
but
there's
how-
that side.
Sure, but on 4.
Yeah.
And also, by the way, what defines playable? Like, just that's really important, right?
Yeah, okay.
We should open, and I think we mentioned
Tournament legal.
We shouldn't mention. We haven't. Sorry, I don't think we mentioned this yet. It's a straight to modern set.
Yes.
So as a format, again, I don't think from memory, if I recall correctly, I also think modern wasn't originally designed by Magic either. They from its like bootstraps,
From like GP.
from GPs. But modern is a format that is designed to be entirely competitive and very focused on like high stakes gameplay, big prizes, pro scene. That's what it's all about, right?
Yeah.
And events. You know, people wanting to play at the top echelon.
So the power level of the cards that go into modern are usually of a much higher ilk than standard.
Yes, because it's because modern is a format made of cards from standard, it only pulls the best of the best from standard sets,
exactly,
which is the way of putting that, right? But then they, you know, Magic has made obviously Modern Horizons, and they made Modern Horizons 2. They made Modern Masters, which was a reprint set, but nonetheless got those cards out there. But Modern Horizons really gave Modern its first new cards ever, perfectly designed for Modern, curated exactly for Modern. And we talked about this last episode where we said, oh my god, it just destroyed shit. And Ragavan is still a card that dominates the format and is a good example of where a card is insanely pushed and its price point is ridiculous and X, Y, and Z. And
that was Modern Horizons 2.
That was Modern Horizons 2. And that's getting reprinted pretty soon as well, right?
Yeah, like in a standard set at an was it a, what do they call them again?
Showcase.
Showcase.
Yeah, they showcase something. It doesn't really matter what's the
masterpiece.
Point is like it's got the masterpiece from Kaladesh Inventions flair to it, like a showcase version because they didn't have showcase.
So it's a mythic of a mythic.
The mythic of a mythic, right? Now that's not the point. Sorry, I don't want to get into the Ragavan conversation. We're talking about modern, right? And that means that, well, sorry, Ragavan is like a part of this conversation because Ragavan was printed for modern, curated for modern. It had to compete with modern. It had to compete with cards that were cherry-picked from all the best standard cards, right? It has to compete with those cards. So by definition, the cards in Lord of the Rings also have to compete with cards that are the best in the standard sets.
So it's going to be better than a standard set.
So it's got to be good cards, right? It's right? Question mark?
Yeah.
And that's where I have to go, well, what if it's not? You know, there are the good cards, but there's a lot of Modern Horizons 2 that's not the good cards, right? A lot of the set. Like, it's even the commons and uncommons are cool and good, but they're not like the best cards ever that are going to be like super valuable. So how expensive is this product going to be for there to be how many valuable cards in the set? Then if the set is just full of gas of broken stuff, is that healthy?
Yeah.
Is that helpful? Is somebody who's got the wallet that can support this hobby going to just beat me? And we had this earlier message about Commander where these cards are obviously going to be good because they're good in a format full of good cards compared to good cards. So they're going to be good cards. and they're going to go into Commander as well. And all of a sudden, this really high-priced product is now injecting itself into my other format, which it always has done.
But Trent, these are just collector boosters. These are just the pretty ones.
These are
What
just
do
the
you
pretty
mean?
ones. What do you mean? I think that another big issue is that mathematically, the collector boosters are also better for the cards that matter. This is what I was trying to get into, right? The cards that matter are going to be in the rare and mythic slots, which collector boosters have lots of.
Yeah.
So they're actually smart to buy in the context of opening those. And we talk about the singles, right? Then it's like, our business does not operate on singles. We have a singles business, but our business does not operate on singles. It operates on sealed product, right? In the context of Magic. So
technically, even the singles business operates on sealed product because a large chunk of the singles that we have come from opening boxes of product.
Yep, and
just prior to release.
And by definition, somebody out there opened boxes of product to get the cards to us through buy lists and such.
Yeah.
So by definition, we require sealed product for that business to operate in the first place. They don't come out of thin air. So if nobody can afford the freaking product, we're not going to get any of the cards, so we're not going to give you cards for cheap. And if nobody can afford the product, the cards are going to have some kind of expensive nature by definition. As in, we can't justify opening those boxes for our store if those cards don't have that kind of value. And if they do,
even then, even if they do have that kind of value, right? Like they have a value worth opening. They're likely to not have the value worth opening for us.
No, absolutely not. And not forever either.
Yeah.
And you know what? Not for long.
Not for long.
One or two of the cards will for a long, long time. But no, just like Hogak and just like lots of stuff that happened in the format, if anything gets too out of control, Modern will ban it. And it won't even be that good in Commander. It'll be like Golem will be a 1-drop and they'll ban him in Modern or something. You know what I mean? I know. Actually, we've seen the Golems leaks, so maybe that's not a good example of a card. But, you know, maybe the Shelob card comes out and it's absolutely twisted and it's a 2-drop. And then Commander's like, oh, it's a good 2-drop. Like Ragavan. Yeah, it's a good 2-drop. It's a good 1-drop. It's got dash for 2, so Ragavan feels like a good 2-drop. So it's like, you know, okay. But I don't know. So obviously I'm rolling on my words a bit in the sense that I'm talking about how that kind of detracts my other point, I guess. But yeah, I think that it's in every way, what I'm trying to say is it feels like in most ways, in every way, this is a negative thing that the price is going up. And this is a Lord of the Rings product, which is one of the coolest products we've had out of all the universes beyond. And just in general. Like,
it seems very strange of a price point for a product that's designed to get people into Magic. Like, a lot of times you talk about, oh, well, why are we doing Universes Beyond? And the thing is that one of the big draw points of Universes Beyond that comes out of Wizards itself is, well, there's people who like Lord of the Rings that want to get into Magic. So is this the perfect place to do it? Well, not when the entry price is 30% above regular. And then add in the fact that collector boosters are more than double the wholesale price.
Yeah.
Like, more than double the price. Bottom line, they're more than double the price regularly. Like, yeah. I say that it's above 500. It's closer to 600. Yeah. I can't say exact prices because I'll get in trouble probably.
And we pretty much have to stop there. That's about as close as we can get.
But yeah, it is closer to 600 than it is 500. And it is it's not great from my perspective either of as a store owner of trying to explain this, because you also got to think about, like, there was a point where Wizards of the Coast stopped doing recommended retail price or MSRP over in the States. I mean, was it manufacturer suggested retail price? They stopped doing that, right? So we've ended up with a situation where they just say to wholesalers, this is the price that we're going to charge you for it. Then the wholesalers say, well, we don't know what the prices be, so we're just going to charge you this much for it as a store. Now, I as a store have to go, all right, well, I need to make a minimum of 25 to 30% on a product to even make it worthwhile keeping my doors open, because
considering every other cost,
considering all the costs, considering wages, outgoings, rent, maintenance, my salary as well, all these kind of things. By the way,
like ridiculous, kind of like egregious, I would say.
It is not.
That needs to be shaved first and foremost, I would.
Do not. I love it. I love it that when you take the amount of hours I work less than minimum wage.
Oh, whatever. Yeah, he does work hard, everyone. I'm just kidding, guys. He does work hard.
But yeah, all these factors come into it, and, you know, everything's not cheap as well. You know, everything's going up, rent's going up, electricity prices are going up. All these elements that go into running a store and keeping hold of this investment of a play space for the community to come and enjoy. I'm now stuck with the fact that I have to answer questions for a decision of pricing made that I had no control.
And it's also, and I know it sounds so diminishing, and I can't stress this enough. It's cardboard.
Yeah.
This is you know what, working class.
It's shiny cardboard.
It's shiny cardboard, but it's cardboard. The point I'm
Cool
making
foil.
is like it's hard to even like I have to sell this to customers. I mean, I don't have to. I'm not saying like, oh, I'm gonna lie to people. Would never do that, never in my life. But it's part of my job to help you decide what cards you need. And we can't stock products that I have to consistently say you can't stock this.
Yeah.
You know what? And that's a practice in the store that we've had before. They were like, I'll give you like it's like the super glue fiasco we had recently.
Yeah.
We had the super glue in store. It was so bad that we as staff just couldn't justify selling it to customers to the point where we pulled it off our shelves and went, we're buying different glue from a company because we actually just can't realistically offer that to you because I want to sell you the glue. I want to make the store money. That's my job. I don't want to sell you something you won't use that isn't good for you or is egregiously expensive compared to how much you should be paying. What if it doesn't work for you as the customer? I don't want you to have it.
Look, honestly, I think like we have them up for pre-order. If you want to pre-order a box, like power to you. But I think at the end of the day, our main focus will be pushing draft and set boosters.
Yeah,
because there's no point. There's like holy shit, like
ridiculous.
I'm not saying like, hey, this collector booster is $85. It's not Double Masters product.
No, it's like, yeah. I feel like this comes back to like you say, you're like, I want to add that it might sound deceptive to go, this product sucks, and we have it on pre-order though. So if you really want to get your hands on it. We don't have it on pre-order because we're happy about that. We want it. We are trying to deceive anyone. We have it on pre-order because it is our responsibility to.
Yeah.
We are obliged to because we are a Wizards Premium Network store as well. There's a level of obligation where we work under Wizards, not directly, but to a degree. So we got to stock their product.
Yeah, and I also want to say, if you want to buy the shiny cardboard, power to you. Do it. Of course, I don't buy the shiny cardboard.
Purely utilitarian.
I'm a store owner, and I buy what I need to play. Most of the time.
Yeah, except that foil extended Cabal coffers. Remember that one? The foil borderless? Too gorgeous.
Too sexy, dude.
Too sexy, dude.
Too sexy.
Dude, when I see the Gimli card, I'll be like, it's too sexy.
Oh, it's too sexy. It's the beard. It's the beard. Yeah. But yeah, look.
All right, set sucks. If you like it, you're not wrong.
Set doesn't suck. The price of the collector booster sucks.
Yeah, that's true. We don't even know we know what's in the set.
We don't even know what's in it.
Do we want to? Do you have a link for what we looked at with the cards? Yeah, Golem and the.
Oh, we can't share it. You'll find it.
Yeah. Oh, we can't share it. That's true. You will find it. There was a couple of leaks. For some of the cards, we have Golem. We have not as mana cards. We have some of Golem. We have all of Frodo, and we're waiting. And we have
Aragorn and
Arwen
as a dual card.
Kind of like the new Mark of the Machines, which is a very cool concept. Not to talk
team
about
up
right now, but very cool.
All right.
Vampire Angel, Vampire Dinosaur. That's nothing to do with Lord of the Rings, but just very cool. Sorry, continue.
All right. And our final piece of news. Catan Championship. Did you know that Settlers of Catan had a world championship title?
Absolutely.
Really new?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, actually, legitimately. But I don't follow it, so I can't help in that.
Well,
continue.
2022 was won by a New Zealander.
Amazing.
A Kiwi from across the Dutch.
Your boys.
Hamish Dean of New Zealand won the 2022 World Championships. And the championships are back, baby. Guess who scored the Queensland State Champions? That's right.
We're holding them.
Yeah, we're holding
doing a bid.
Oh, you were doing a bid?
I didn't realize I was like, we're holding them.
The Queensland State Championships for Catan are being held at Vault Games on May the 13th.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That is so
if you
cool.
win that, you get a travel credit to head to Nationals. It's going to sound like an episode of Glee. You get a travel credit to the Nationals down in Canberra in August, I believe it is.
The ACT.
And if you win that, you get travel credit over to the World Championships happening sometime in October, November. Usually they ran them around Essen at the Essen Spiel convention in October, but last year was actually at Malta in November. So
very cool. Yeah,
who knows what that's going to be. So if you want to join in that, come down and see us. If you're in Queensland or you want to make the trek to Queensland, we're in the heart of the city, so there's like accommodation everywhere. But also, if you don't want to play in the Queensland states, check the Catan World Championships page on CatanStudio.com. They'll usually have listings of the different states. I know that the Catan guys will be posting, I don't know if it's going up before or after this video is aired, published on YouTube. It's recorded a little bit earlier than that, but it may be up by the time this comes out. But but there will be all the different stores that are running them around Australia, New Zealand, even around the world, and you can get to the World Championships.
But just, I was gonna say, it does sound like any tournament circuit, doesn't it? It's like,
yeah, it really does. It's quite
from,
strange.
You go from regionals, nationals, oceanics, worlds. That's how you works, for example. So it's like any other tournament.
No oceanics though.
Straight to worlds. Straight to worlds. You know,
it's a 4-player game.
With the wheat will cut itself from the chaff. Let me tell you something. The context of Catan.
Unless you trade it for sheep first. Yeah, I saw where that bit was going. I saw where that bit was going.
All right.
All right, that's the news for this week. Now we're going to have an ad break. So enjoy the ads. This show is brought to you by Vault Games. If you're looking for your next hobby fix, jump on over to vaultgames.com.au where you can pick up anything you need to enjoy your tabletop hobby. Be it board games, RPGs, trading cards, minis, or paints and tools, Vault Games will have it in, or they can order it in for you. With shipping Australia-wide and now 2 locations in Brisbane, they can get your order to you, or you can swing by and pick it up yourself. Use the discount code from the Vault for 5% off your order.
This show is also brought to you by TCG Singles, powered by Vault Games. Do you have cardboard you want to turn into cash? Head on over to tcgsingles.store and enter your buy list of Magic or Pokemon cards right now to convert them into cash or even store credit to grab what you need for your next deck. Use the discount code from the Vault to get 5% off your order, or use the code LEELINE to get 10% off your first order.
And we're back. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're not going to have the usual major topic discussion that Trent and I usually have here on the podcast. Instead, we have an interview.
Awesome.
Yeah, we got a special guest. It is Associate Professor John Banks from the School of Communication in Queensland University of Technology.
Actually a good friend of mine that I've known for a long time now. I'd say about 8 years now.
And a good friend of the store. He's a regular player here at Vault as well. And he is currently doing a study, and I got to read this out. It is Fostering Inclusivity and Diversity in Magic Commander. So he has a full study on that he is currently working into getting published.
Breaking down the whole social dynamic of the game.
Social dynamic of the game, building inclusive communities, and one of the communities that he was looking at was the very inclusive and diverse community here at Vault Games. So coming up right now is a recording of that interview. It has been edited for time, but we hope you enjoy it, and let us know in the comments any questions you may have or you want us to follow up with Professor John Banks with. All right, so I'm here with John Banks, Associate Professor at the School of Communication at the Queensland University of Technology. John, how are you going today?
Awesome. Loving this balmy Brisbane autumn day.
yeah, the 30+ degree weather that's meant to be like deep summer weather is happening in mid to late March.
Yeah, definitely, Dylan.
So John has been running a study over the last 12 months about fostering inclusivity and diversity in tabletop communities, particularly around Magic the Gathering Commander format, which we know and love here at From the Vault and at Vault Games overall. And in doing so, he's talked to many people from the Commander community, including players, store owners, and members of the Commander Rules Committee as well. Hopefully, you get to chat to someone directly from WotC soon. We'll see if that plays out. And full disclosure, John has been interviewing parts of the Vault Games player community and even myself as one of the store owners for his study as well. John, great to have you here and have a chat about inclusivity and community building. Hopefully, people will get something out of this, not only from a store perspective as a store owner or a store worker or a manager, but also as a member of a community that's hoping to foster those kind of diverse relationships. So let's start with your background then, John. Who are you and how did you start in the tabletop hobby?
Okay, so I'm John. As Dylan mentioned, I happen to be an academic, a researcher at Queensland University of Technology, but pre that, for much of my life, literally, I've been a gamer. So right back to in high school in the 1980s, showing my age there, I played D&D. I got into D&D. I played with friends at schools. I DM'd games with my friends and my brother. I was active in local clubs. I was active in then board gaming, which was predominantly back then the old Avalon Hill war games and things like that. In the 1990s, when Magic came out, I became aware of it through people that I was playing D&D with. We heard about this weird and wonderful game coming out of the States, all these rumors. Cards started turning up. We were trying to figure out how to play it, how it worked, and I remembered finding this little game store at Strathpine of all places, in which there was a group of people. This would have been in mid-90s. I can't remember exact year. And that's when I first played Magic. Sat down. They gave me a Goblins deck, a mono red Gobbo's Bernie deck, and I got into it and loved it. And I've been a bit of on and off, a bit of a Magic tragic since then. Loved the game. Played it on and off for various reasons, various things going on in life. But yeah, look, it's been a game that's been important to me. Gaming's been an important part of my life. Going on from there, over the recent years, really the last decade, in fact, maybe in particular the last 5 or 6 years, getting very interested in how the board gaming hobby and culture has been changing, the diversification in design, right? From tabletop gaming, miniatures, through to the resurgence of interest in role playing, the resurgence of interest in board gaming, the wonderful new designs coming out with games like Wingspan, and you could go on and on. And I've been fascinated by it both personally and as a researcher. It's also an important part of my family culture. I play with my family a lot, particularly with my children and my partner. So I would say, yeah, I'm a bit of a big gaming nerd.
That's great to hear. We love gamers here at Vault. So the main reason we asked you to join us here at From the Vault is because of your study in inclusive community building in a store environment. In 30 words or less, roughly, that's just kind of like a limiter there. But can you please give those listening and watching the podcast here a rundown of what you're looking into in this study?
Okay, so one of the things I'm looking into, and here I'll put my researcher hat on initially, and I'll switch between modalities a little bit, and my fan participant hat. But as a researcher, I have been researching the video games industry for well over a decade, and it's where my research has tended to focus. I've been looking at issues in the video games industry in Australia, looking at the rise of the indie games companies and scene and the significance of it. But throughout this, in the research field, people that research video games and video games industry, an issue that has come up again and again and again, and it's been quite prominent in the industry as well, is the challenges around diversity and inclusion, right? It's been a game that's it's been an industry that has had its issues around that. It's been an industry that I think it's fair to say has been very much dominated by white guys, right?
That's
and
absolute. And like, look at us. 2 white guys.
And look at us.
I
know. 2 white guys.
Who would have thought?
It, right? Yeah. And that has raised a whole pile of concerns, right? We do want a more diverse hobby and a wider community. We want inclusion. We want people to feel comfortable with sharing their interests and hobbies. And it goes to also workplaces, right? People that want to work in the industry. Do they feel welcome and included? Do they feel safe? There's been all the controversies around Gamergate that you and some listeners may be aware of.
Unfortunately, yes.
And there've been many, significant researchers who have paid close attention. I'm not saying that, I'm far from the first person to have been raising these issues. And there've been many wonderful researchers, people of color, women research, feminist researchers, people that identify as LGBTQI+ are concerned with the interests of that community, raising these questions and looking at them for a while. So I had to become, and I continue to have to be aware of those privileges and those differences, and how there are ways in which perhaps we can play and game and interact in ways that are more open, welcoming, inclusive. I have a history, and I'll disclose, and I do have a history with people at Vault, with yourself, that goes back a few years, and the other owners and some people that play there. I've known some of your staff for many years, Trent, for example.
Another from the Vault podcast member, Trent.
Yep, Trent. And what's what fascinated me was I saw a difference occurring, a different set of values, commitments, a different kind of space, which I was experiencing as more inclusive and more diverse. And I was interested in that. I was interested in how people were experiencing that, what contributes to enabling that, the values and commitments around that, the kind of staff challenges and the significance of staffing and the staff work and the skills and capabilities and commitments to achieve that and to foster that. But also what the community itself has done, because my experience playing at Vault, and there are challenges and issues as well. I don't want to be everything at Vault is wonderful and fantastic.
Speaking as the owner and yeah, it's and the primary community builder for a large chunk of the business's life. Like, there are plenty of challenges.
Yeah, plenty of challenges. But what I've been interested in over the time of the research, the period of the research, is actually looking at that and looking how people do that, how they understand that, how it matters to them in different ways, how they communicate and negotiate around that. And so I could talk about more about that in a moment, but that's broadly why I've been interested in looking at it in the context of Vault, and why Commander, I guess, in the context of Vault. Well, Commander has at its heart as a format, a magic format, right? The social imperative.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So
yeah, it's definitely, there's definitely like a parallel line between what is social to people and what is fun to people, because they're the two different major elements. And we'll get into breaking down Commander format a bit more shortly. But you did mention Sheldon Mannery in there from the Commander Rules Committee, the founder of the format. Who else have you been talking to with this study? Like we mentioned a little bit earlier.
Look, I've chatted with Gavin Dugan. I've chatted with Olivia Gobert Hicks. I've chatted with Jim Lepage. I'm trying to remember all the people. Quite a few different people from the Commander Advisory Group as well. And look, it was great because I initially approached Sheldon and just literally through Discord.
Yeah.
And just said, hey, I'm doing this research. And he has been so open and so supportive of the project, of discussions with me. He's invited, put me in contact with other people to have discussions. And I think that shows the openness and interest of that group of fairly senior stakeholders in the game that have a lot of skin in the game. He is the format founder in some ways. He acknowledges the antecedents of that and the significance of other people as well that have fed into the development of the format, but still a significant person in the world
absolutely.
of Commander, right?
He is EDH king, really.
I think he's referred to in some places as the Commander Godfather, right?
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But
it's the
Sheldon
Marlon Brando of the 4-player table.
Well, yeah, but he has been really open and interested in these questions, including how the format can do this better, including the challenges around the format, how it's changed and evolved. And I think you see that in the change in makeup recently of people on the rules committee. That you have someone like Olivia on there now, that you have a far more diverse representation on the wider Commander Advisory Group. I think you're seeing it, so.
Well, that definitely brings me into my next question then. Like, what kind of, what are these, I'd assume that because you're looking at how different social can be for everyone, how different fun can be for everyone, I assume that even out of the Commander Rules Committee and the Commander Advisory Group, that they're also giving like quite different answers to your questions as well. So it presents like a diverse opinion even all the way to the top of Commander. Is that correct?
Well, of course. It's interesting. They all emphasize the social imperative, right? And they do, and they seem to really want to hold on to that and maintain that at the heart of the game. So when you're having discussions with them about things like game mechanics, the controversial question of what should or shouldn't be banned, or how extensive the ban list should be.
Yes, the constant discussion, discussion that Trent and I have every week. What should or shouldn't be banned in Commander?
Yeah, and that comes up in store with the research I'm doing, and that's one of the frequent discussions I either overhear or get to participate in, or occurs in pods that I'm playing at. Someone will be dirty about a particular card that's dropped, and there'll be laughter, and there'll be that card should be banned, like Dockside or something.
Yeah.
Right? A table will be on the wrong end of a Dockside, and there'll be a discussion about, are they looking at that card? Should it be in the game? How fair is it? It's fascinating. But what comes up again and again is the awareness. From my experience, the people I've spoken to on both the advisory group and the Rules Committee, they're aware of all this. They're in touch with many people in the broader Commander ecosystem. And they're aware of the cards that are being raised and discussed. Now, they're following it fairly closely, but they are reluctant to hit too many things with the band stick And one of the reasons is because the social imperative at the heart of the game and the awareness that the game is played very differently in different places. But there are also different views about things like what commander means in terms of power levels as well. Like you've got someone like Jim Lepage on the group now that comes from a bit of a more, I guess, competitive commander background. I mean, he doesn't view himself, at least in the discussions I've had with him, and I don't want to misrepresent him here, as a particular CEDH person. And I don't think he sees himself as speaking on behalf of that community at all. But he is interested in the more high-powered play and the cool synergies you can do with decks, etc. But one of the things that he pointed out to me is that viewing that as separate from or opposed to social may be a problem because it has its own forms of social interaction, its own conventions of social interaction,
and its own forms of fun. Like that's
its own understandings of fun.
Of fun. It's such a complex beast. And like the last question on kind of like understanding the study and all that. What's your hopes of like where do you hope that this study leads to? Like what kind of outcomes do you think are like, not necessarily to say that the study's going to solve everything and all that kind of stuff, but kind of like an understanding. What kind of understandings are you hoping to bring out from that?
So there's a couple of levels. First of all, at the academic level, I hope that the research, and I will be publishing from it, and I'm in the process of drafting a book at the moment from the material, and academic presentations at conferences and workshops, etc., to contribute to the discussions and debates that are occurring around games and game culture generally. And there is a resurgence of interest at the moment around board gaming cultures and hobbies. For example, I have a colleague in the United States, Aaron Trammell. He has a great book that I'm aware of coming out in April called The Privilege of Play. And he looks at the history of the hobby and questions and issues around things like white privilege and the issues around that and what certain kinds of assumed male white identities in the game that perhaps have been a bit exclusionary and gatekeepy. And he's looked at, and it's a fascinating book looking at the history of it. I want to contribute to those discussions in the community about these questions, hopefully in an open, kind, considerate way. I mean, that has its risks because, as you're aware, in the broader Magic community and ecosystem, there's a quite diverse range of views on this issue, right?
Yeah.
You see stuff unfortunately, on Reddit and other places, not just Reddit, but other places, where there be accusations or allegations. This is all some form of problematic wokeness, right? That's being imposed on the game or players. And I'm hoping that perhaps we can move beyond that, have a bit of a discussion about why more inclusive, more welcoming, more open approaches are good for the game, are good for the hobby. And we can talk about that, Dylan, because I know you have views on that. Your own store's vision of everyone's a gamer,
Yeah, and there's absolutely a place as well to say in there that, it's not just good for games and it's not just good for communities, it's also just good for business.
And the other thing, one other point I'd make is one of the things I hope that the book and the research will achieve is at the moment there is two white guys talking about this.
Absolutely,
right?
Yeah, and that's something that we need to acknowledge that.
Yeah, and we do need to acknowledge that. Yeah. So one of the things I'm hoping to do in the book is create a space and a platform for those diverse voices to be heard with their experiences and views on this. And that's where the opportunity involved has been wonderful. And I would like to do a shout out to the community here and a huge thank you, because this research is not possible without the generosity and openness of the people that have played with me, shared their experiences with me, talked to me about their experiences in these areas. I think really enriches the research. And I really want to make sure that those voices and those experiences are heard, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're watching this as well on YouTube or listening to this through another app, jump into the comments on the YouTube channel and share some of your experiences in the community. Are you an individual that isn't generally represented in a Magic community? Let us know like what experiences you've had, whether they're good or bad, and what kind of actions stores and community members can take to help foster that better space for you and the people around you. So let's get into the meat of it. Obviously, we've it keeps coming up. We're talking about Commander format. For those that don't know, I'd assume many of the listeners on here know what the Commander format is for Magic. But for those that don't know, the Commander format is a format that was created by Sheldon Mannery and a couple of friends who are also judges at a GP back in was it like the late 90s, mid to late 90s. Basically the way the decks work is you pick a commander that is a legendary creature. Back in the old days, it was only one of the Elder Dragons from I think like Legend set or something like that. But your deck picks a legendary creature as your commander. Your deck can only include colorless cards or cards that have a color identity that match your commander. So that's the quick and dirty of the commander format. So we mentioned that social is different for everyone. We've mentioned that fun is different for everyone. Is that what makes this format so important of a candidate for your study? Is that it's not only about the diversity of players,
definitely.
it's about the diversity of play.
Definitely. So one of the things that interested me about Commander and why I focused on Commander, and for a while and moving ahead with my research, I am interested in continuing across different games. I am interested in looking at what social looks like in the context of miniatures, for example, or the differences across these communities and sub-communities in the hobby. But Commander was my first point because at the heart of it is social, but it's the way the social experience interacts with the specificities and mechanics of Commander as a game, right? It's just sitting down and you kind of have a some ways stated and understood agreement that, hey, this doesn't quite work as a competitive game in which it's balanced and everyone has an equal chance of coming out at the end as the winner, right? But is that actually why we're playing? What is the experience that we're playing? And how do we negotiate and navigate that so all four players sitting around a table can reach some sort of agreement and understanding and shared experience that they're having fun together, and there's an understanding of what that involves, how that's realized and achieved. And sometimes what fascinates me is that when that is achieved well, it can be awesome. The feeling of a pod that has gone well and you've had a great night and a great experience with that group of people. So when I interview players or I hear them talking or talk with them while I'm playing, when I ask them why they play Commander, what is it about the game? Invariably that comes up is because it's social, right? This is why I play it again and again. But when I start asking them what that means for them, what is that? It is interesting that it's different for different people. For some people, it can be that I come to the store or I get together with a group of people that I know really well. We've been playing together for a year, 2 years, 3 years longer. We know each other's decks. We know each other's play styles. So we can have a laugh about when X friend pulls off their weird combo because we know how weird it is, how unlikely it is to come off, but it came off in that particular game. All power to them. They went off and we celebrate.
Yeah.
The fun factor, that social factor gets realized in all sorts of different ways that I really have enjoyed experiencing, but also trying to understand the nuance of.
Yeah, it's like there's storytelling within playing the game itself, not just necessarily winning, which again comes back to your idea of a win isn't a win. A win of the game isn't a win for the experience necessarily for everyone. Some people have a win in the experience by just watching someone pull Sower of Discord off the top and then take out 2 players instantly. Those kind of fun, interesting things.
And players will talk about their sit down before the game, after the game, sometimes during the game, and tell the stories about their cards that they've got. There is the game, but it's an opportunity to talk about what your experience has been, things that have been going on for you in your life during the week. And people know people in the community that may be struggling with some issues, right? Or some challenges, or something's been going on at work or whatever. And people get to know each other. And there is this really caring environment and vibe there about people have known each other for a while. And some people in the store, I won't say who, because there are confidentiality issues around the research, etc. But this is a comment that's come up again and again. The game is really important to me for my mental well-being and mental health.
Yeah.
Right. These Tuesday nights I come along and I play matter to me in my life so much. And it is an important opportunity for social interaction for me in ways, for a range of reasons that I'm either not comfortable with or have challenges with gaining from other areas of my life. So for some of the people that come along on these Tuesday nights, it's a game, but it's also much more than that. So I think, you know, an awareness around that of how much the game and these environments and these stores and the communities around them mean to some people that are there. They're not just customers. Sure, they're there buying products and investing and supporting the business, but that place is a place that many of them have shared with me that they feel safe.
It's the kind of thing that I hear rumblings of as a store owner all the time. That, oh, this is such a great space that if it didn't exist, I'd have, you know, all these kind of problems or whatever. And it's kind of heartwarming to hear that, like, that's actually coming through in the research as well. Because, you know, a lot of times I think it's there from like third party whispers, blah 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 blah. But to actually know that people have said this stuff in confidence is actually really important to me as a store owner, because it feels like what we're doing here is good and it's the right thing to do by the community. And I hope other store owners watching this have that thought in mind when they go about starting, or even potential store owners in the future, have that in mind when they go about creating these communities or looking at their current communities and going, how can this be better?
On that point, just a couple of things that have come through in the research I think might be important from what I picked up from Volt. The first of all, it's an explicit commitment to that. It's not auxiliary or additional to the business. It's at the heart of it. I mean, I think that's there in your vision that you've had for a long time, that you've shared with me a few times, that thing about everybody's a gamer.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
But working through what does that actually mean and how do you do that, and that everybody is not just assumed to be a certain kind of dude. When I've talked to people in your store and people like Trent, and I'm comfortable mentioning Trent by name because he has given me permission to with the research, etc. He talks about, when we talk about doing this well, and there are many other people in the store I've discussed this with. It's pretty simple. Talks about it as just being considerate.
And that's the thing that Trent and I have discussions about all the time too, is about that consideration, like being a considerate player, not just a considerate person. A considerate person's actually like just a general social thing. If you sign the social contract of life in a society, then you should be considerate of others. But when it comes to the Commander format and gameplay, that consideration is a key element of that social agreement that we talked about. You know, it's not only wanting to say, hey, this is my social understanding of the game, and then this is my idea of fun in the game. It's also being considerate of others in having that idea of social and that idea of fun, which then breaks down to the whole, like, oh, if my idea of fun is competitive gameplay with optimized loops where I'm playing solitaire for 2 or 3 turns, that can still be fun. And the trick is to just is trying to find a group that is seeing that as fun as well and has that social dynamic as well, which is one of the reasons why we have those competitive and those tune tables for our Commander events. Is the idea is not only to say, hey, your deck is really strong and you should be playing on these tables because the people at other tables won't really know how to deal with you, but there's also that element of the people at these tables have a social idea of this is the social idea of this table, and we have a consideration of this is how we're going to play.
And it's complicated, right? And it can be difficult and challenging because there are different knowledge levels of the game.
Absolutely.
For a start, you can have someone sit down and they're a newish player, but they may have some dollars, right?
Yeah.
They may have some income available. So they've brought a pre-con. They've been to some pre-release events. They've been beaten up a few times, played some games. They've jumped online, net deck, and just gone on it, and they're dropping in these cards, right?
Yep. They have a
mono
red Ragavan deck that's just Dockside Extortionist.
So you get that level, and it's literally inadvertent, and it sometimes can be through excitement of the game, and they just think this is what you do, right? You get the cards, they're legal. I pulled them, I brought them, I can chuck them in a deck, and I can sit down and play to the best of my ability. And So there's that level of, and there's a kind of
yeah.
there's a kind of a mentoring and and I think there are people involved that are good at this, including some people in the store that will take these people aside gently.
Yeah, and be
Just
like,
be
hey,
quiet, be quiet,
maybe you
chat,
should be
hey,
playing on a higher table with a better kind of like social
or
understanding of what's going on.
or you're still learning. Maybe you might want to take some of those cards out for now, and you know what I
Yeah,
mean. So there's
yeah.
there's that level, which is fine. And then there's the level, but there is another level, and this is where it gets a little bit controversial. And this is where you're aware of when my research hit a particular period at Vault,
Yep.
where there was some controversy in the community. So this is again where I want to be careful about not presenting Vault as this place where you sit down and play and everything's wonderful all the time.
No, it's not.
And
It's not perfect.
And everybody's happy.
It's
not
never
perfect. There are problems, and I saw a period of time where there were these problems around how the kinds of decks and play styles some players were bringing to what you called your regular table, right?
Yeah.
And that's where probably more than 2/3 of the players play each Tuesday night.
Yeah, I'd say about that.
Yeah. Yeah. And Tuesday night at Vault, you get 50 plus players.
Yeah, 50. We
full.
sell out at 52. Yeah.
Yeah, 52. It's full. It's a great environment. Like the first time I went there, it almost felt like a semi-party environment for a while. But it's a great vibe. But the regular table, it's like, well, what is regular?
Yeah.
Everybody seems to be fairly comfortable with knowing what casual is. You got pre-cons and there's sorts of cards you don't play, and the priority is on fun and social, and I that's generally how it works. And if someone just doesn't get it, right, and they have to be shifted.
Yeah.
The more competitive, the tuned in, what you call tuned, is players are there. They're playing to win.
Yep.
They've got some blinged up decks with some moderately to quite expensive decks that can win quickly if they get going. Right, they can go off and be done turn 6, but again, or even sooner. But again, there have been games I think I've seen on Tune that have gone for hours.
Oh, we've had games on Tuned that the store's meant to shut at 10, and they've been going since they've been going until 11:30. And now these were the days where I was working in the store, so I wasn't paying anyone to close the store. Then I was just there, and I was like, yeah, sure, I'll see this out. This is fun. Like that was the days of the like 8 counterspell commander stack. Like it was insane.
And the view of the players and I've interviewed some of those players.
Yeah.
And they're very social, many of them, right?
And they come out of that going, oh my God, that was the most amazing game I've ever had.
Yep. And they're into it. And when I talk to them about Commander, they do talk about their social as having an understanding. And when you sit down, you're playing to win.
Yep.
And everybody understands that. And you're bringing your best deck. And you might have discussions about that. And there are discussions, and I've overheard or participated in discussions where people are talking about how to power your deck up.
Yeah.
These are things you might want to think about. The packages, groups of cards you might want to include that you're not. Maybe your mana base is not quite working. Talking about how to get that deck to a higher, more efficient level. And they enjoy playing in the game in a very efficient way, which is looking for those lines of play that are optimal. And look, it's interesting, right? If you think about the format and what's happened with the format, it was a game that was developed to be played amongst groups of people that kind of knew each other in a very casual, not competitive, not formal setting, right? And it's become the probably the number one,
the primary format of Magic. It is Magic the Gathering
format of Magic, right? Yeah. And look, in discussions I've had with Sheldon and others, I don't think they envisaged that.
No,
I think that's surprised. They're happy about it. They're excited about it.
They would have had a more stricter rule set.
They're somewhat surprised about that, right? And then trying to adjust for that. And I've had some interesting discussions with them about this, about how do you translate that into pickup games in a store environment like Vault, where you've got people signing up and being matched up on a Tuesday evening, where you guys, well, the people that work in the store, have got certain parameters in which you can work around and time, and doing this in a way that works for a business to match people up. It's very different from you've got a group of friends and you're hanging out and you can, start working out what decks work best with what combination of decks, and you have an understanding about that and you get to know each other's play styles. And I played at Vault for many weeks over the course of a year, and I've got to the point where I know that there's certain players and certain tables that when I sit down with, I know their decks, I know their play styles, so I know how to interact with that and have a good time. And sometimes it's harder. It's more clunky. It's harder to get that fit going. How do you do that in a store environment in which there's a bit of in some ways, a little bit of a mismatch between the format and the design of the format and what you're trying to do in a store event, I guess. The challenges around making that work. And what's the responsibility? Now, I'll put this up there, and you may or may not want to comment on this. What's the responsibility with WotC and the RC and et cetera to be providing some clearer guidelines about how that may work for different types of events and environments, I guess. And to what extent should they just leave that to the stores at a local level to sort out themselves?
Well, that brings me to the next question then I have for you. Is we've kind of touched on it, Magic's primary format is now Commander. It is the biggest player base of the game now. They are clearly designing products around Commander. So what kind of, in your opinion, doesn't necessarily have to be your research back, but just in your opinion, has the shift to Commander first for Wizards been a positive or a negative to you for the format, in both a gameplay and a community perspective?
From my experience, it's personally, and it's a positive, right? But there are ups and downs with it, right? The positive is that it's brought in all these players. And many people that I've spoken to, the only way they've ever played Magic is Commander, right? They haven't drafted, they haven't played Standard, they haven't played Pioneer, they may or may not play a little bit online at Arena and play some what's typically your typical 60 card Standard format, but they play Commander because they like Commander. This is how they found out about the game, heard about the game. They like that social interaction. That's what the game is for them, and it's worked, right? Look at your oversubscribed Commander nights, your Tuesday nights, and you're not doing that with your draft evenings, are you?
No, we're usually getting about 2 to 3 pods, which is still pretty good for a draft, to be honest with you. But but yeah,
and I think about my own play history, that when I started playing way back, and when I would go to stores on Friday night Magic, it was Standard and drafting, and it was tended to be reasonably competitive, even if it was casually competitive. They'd have you go to pre-release events, when new sets would come out, and they would tend to be more casual social events. You'd be there to chat about the new cards and have a bit of fun and build some crazy deck from whatever you opened. But Commander has changed that to this new format, and I think the community is still working out how that works in a business sense in a store environment, right? Because really stores and the way you can speak to this more than what I can, in the relationship with WotC, with Wizards, etc. It has been around that competitive events and pre-releases and drafts, etc. And I don't know if it's quite been worked through how you make that work for this different format that's Commander. I also think there's something COVID about it, post-COVID. And some players have talked to me about that. They've had a period where they couldn't play with people, couldn't get together and socially interact and play cards and games. COVID's over. They really wanted to do that. They don't want to just play online or at Arena, so they're really enjoying that physical contact with other people, sitting around a table playing, coming out of COVID and the other side of COVID. And quite a few people have talked to me about that in the research I'm doing. So I think there's a few elements playing into it. I'm just not sure, and your perspective as a store owner and someone who's running these events on this is perhaps more significant, is that, to me, what I'm seeing is a bit of a clunkiness mismatch between where the format and the game's gone and how WotC understands what stores do around supporting events and how the events run.
Yeah, and it's always a hard discussion to have over what do we have access to as a store and what rule sets can we run. Obviously, they're doing like Commander Party stuff now, and they just announced that Commander Party is going to be available to all stores. We've had it for WPN Premium for the entire, like, since Dominaria United. We haven't run them yet because we're trying to find a date, and the materials never seem to arrive when they're meant to. So we've been scared to actually, like, run them because it's like, oh, well, we can announce it, and they're meant to be another one next season, but we don't know when that's going to be because we're never sure that the materials are going to arrive. So that's like a whole discussion thing on that. But yeah, I am going to be reaching out to Wizards of the Coast to see if I can do some kind of help in explaining how we do our stuff and how that plays out, and how they can expand that to other stores.
But from my perspective, what's interesting though is the messiness around that is kind of illuminating in terms of, and I think it will always be there in a game like Commander to some extent. And like you've already said this, Dylan, and suggested this. It's not always necessarily about the deck and about the mechanics and about what gets banned, etc. It comes back to the players, right? And what you bring to the table in terms of consideration and empathy and communication, right? And it's with Commander being a social game, I don't think that's going to go away.
So just to finish off, then we're going to talk about some, like, what actions can people take. So from your study so far, what do you think are some actions that stores or event or community organizers that they can take that can help foster this kind of inclusive community from, like, an organizational aspect?
I think the first thing is actually being aware and interested in the topic, in the issue, being aware that it's an issue and being prepared to actually think about it in a conscious way, in an intentional way, right? Mm-hmm. That's ground zero for me, that you have to actually, it's not just everybody should be able to come into our store and play. We don't have an issue with that, but actually being a bit more conscious and thoughtful about that. Well, what does that mean? Why have we only got maybe 90% or more of our store is white dudes of a certain age range? What are we doing that might be gatekeepery? And being honest about that, being prepared to be honest and have some honest conversations about that, right? And being reflective about that, asking people, being open enough to ask people and have conversations about what are the things that we could do differently around that. I do think it comes down to the commitment of the owners to enabling and supporting that, and it can be tough. I think it's staffing. This is one big thing that many of the players have raised with me, how vital Vault staff are in supporting and fostering this, from the kinds of people you employ. And I don't necessarily mean it's just simply a case of employing people based on identity, but I think it does come into the equation. If you've got someone, of course you want people that love games, deep game knowledge, prepared to share that with people, but in the mix just as significantly is diversity of staff, right? Because seeing who's on the store floor when somebody walks in and that you actually can see people like or somewhat like you, that it's not all just guys, I think contributes to that sense of comfort and welcome in an environment. So I think there's that. And I think there's that, you walk the walk, you can have your signs up about harassment and the standard signs about behaviors, but that you're actually seen to be practicing that and supporting and doing the necessary things when those clear boundaries are infringed. And and I know that you've had to do that at times. You've had to ask people to leave the store. You've had to have those tough discussions, being prepared to do that. But I think there's another level of it, which is how would I put this? It's mentoring. It's those quiet conversations, those opportunities that I've seen your store staff and players and your store experience players have with people, which is not an aggressive, hey, you're doing this wrong, but you might want to think about this.
Yeah.
Have you thought about how that might make someone else feel?
Well, yeah, there's definitely a layer of that in dealing with members of the community that are not like neurotypical in the sense of regular players, because there's a layer that is they just don't know, and it's all part of that education aspect of saying, hey, well, maybe this isn't correct, how this interaction happened was not correct. and where like our goal is a harmonious atmosphere. So let's have a chat about how we can make sure that you fit within that, and everyone involved, including yourself, ends up with a better experience overall.
Yep. And I think one of the points you raised there about neurodiversity, I think is an important one. It has come through strongly in my research, really strongly. It's surprised me a little bit, perhaps shouldn't have. You know, I thought I would hear from looking at Vault, and I have significance of issues of gender, the significance of issues of sexual identity, LGBTQI people, non-binary people, a range of different identifications, and you have a big community of diverse players from all those various backgrounds and experiences that share with me their different experiences of Commander and playing at Vault. But quite a few people have identified as neurodiverse, right, and in discussions, and that's been very interesting, the different ways that neurodiverse people navigate and understand social interaction. And I'm quite happy to say I identify as neurodiverse myself. So, and I think that's a really interesting conversation that I don't see, that hasn't emerged a lot in the research as yet, or necessarily in the wider community, that when we're talking about neurodiversity and the way neurodiverse people interact with each other and neurotypical people, that adds another layer to what we understand social interaction to be, and how it works and how people are comfortable with it. So I think that's an important dimension.
So that then leads me into like the other side of the action of for people as well to understand from this, to take away from this interview, is also like, if you're just a player in the community, what kind of actions can they take and how they interact within that community?
I think one of the big ones, right, and even for me, I keep reminding myself, I don't want to just lecture to people and say, hey, I get it right, I know this, and this is how you've got to be. I'm learning myself. One of the reasons I like playing Commander, I learned a lot about myself and my own assumptions and perspectives and prejudices about interacting with other people. So just to be open and curious about that, and not assume that based on your identity, your personal background, that's the way it is. That's the norm, right? Being prepared to be open and aware and observant that people may experience things that you do, or things about their own comfort levels in playing differently than you. So be open about being prepared to be picked up on that, have a conversation about that, to be reflective about that, to ask politely about that. So it's fine. I generally introduce myself in games. Hey, I'm John. My personal pronouns are he, him. You know, what are the preferred pronouns of people that you're playing with? Respect that. Do you have a player that what you're picking up on with your play on them is that they are perhaps a little bit socially anxious, and that there are some interactions that make them uncomfortable? How can you negotiate that? Can you have a discussion about that? Or does that discussion not make that person comfortable? It's not easy. It's not always easy, but I think being open enough to have some sort of awareness that these issues are important, and to work on that, and to be prepared to work on that with yourself and others. I think that's a great starting point. I will say that there are things that I'm just not tolerant of. I don't have time for it. I'll be open about it. If somebody comes in and they're just refusing, after being politely reminded or asked, to use someone's appropriate pronouns, or they are being bullying, or they are playing in a really what we would call toxic, obnoxious way, despite being, I'm just literally going to stand up and leave that table and not play with that person. You know, I think there are some boundaries there. There are some just not acceptables that I have, and that I think other players have as well, that we can be open about. But I think it gets more complex. That in some ways that's easy. I'm not necessarily for the people that are experiencing that. I'm talking about my own accountability as a white privileged guy, and what I can do in those circumstances. For me, that's easy. I call it out, or I get up and walk away, or I draw management's attention to it. I have an accountability and responsibility to do that because of my privileges, right? But it's definitely not easy for the people that are experiencing that, or on the other end of that, or have been experiencing that. I want to be clear on that.
So it's kind of sitting at like, be open to discuss the problems that you can create, be open to discussing the problems you encounter, and don't tolerate intolerance.
Yeah, and again, but the interesting parts is where it's a bit blurry, right? And where it may be an exercise in education, and it may be that someone just really doesn't understand their own privilege or their own identity and how it can be, because they've never really thought about that much, and how it can make another player something that they're not assuming is remotely making another person uncomfortable, but it is. So how do we have those tougher conversations in ways that are okay for all those involved? And I think it comes back to some points that your staff make with me over and over again, come back to Trent. It's about being considerate.
Yeah,
about being empathetic,
being considerate.
Cool. It comes. So thanks so much, Dylan, for supporting the research,
No worries.
for allowing me the time to interact with you and your staff there at Vault. And it's been quite an adventure, and I think it's really helped me think hopefully in a meaningful way about these issues and challenges, and hopefully what I end up with will make a contribution back to the community as well.
Well, thank you for joining me.
By the way,
sorry, you go.
If anyone out there watching in the community wants to participate in the research and wants to have a conversation about their experience, please reach out to me. There are ethical requirements I have for undertaking my research that are required by QUT that are there about the kinds of people that can participate. For example, anyone under 18, no. But I'm more than happy to have some conversations with people if they're interested in contributing or participating.
Yeah, and you can find John on the Vault Games community Discord server at discord.gg/vaultgames. Let us know in the comments below if you'd like John to reach out to you as well. We'll pass that all on to John. And yeah, I just want to say thanks, John, for sitting down for this interview that went longer than I thought it would.
Yeah, you might want to. Maybe you have to cut it a bit.
There's definitely going to be an edit to this one. I'll see if we put up an unedited version of this. Maybe we'll see. But thanks so much for joining me for this. It's been awesome picking your brain on this whole discussion over Commander and inclusivity in environments. And yeah, absolutely. If you want to hear more from John, jump on the Discord. So if you want to participate in the research, jump on the Discord server and have a chat to John on there and see if he can get together with you and add your stories to part of the research, and let us know in the comments about what kind of inclusive communities you've discovered and how that inclusivity has helped you and how it's come about. I think that's it. Thanks so much, John. Have a good week, and I guess I'll catch you Tuesday night at Commando.
Probably. See ya.
All right, see ya. Thanks so much, John. All right, that was the interview. If you have any questions or queries for Associate Professor John Banks, let him know in the comments, and then we can forward them on, see if he's floating around on the video. But now, it's time to finish off this episode with a game.
Another game.
Another game.
This time I am prepared again with a couple of fun stuff. Usually I like to do the which one it is and which one isn't. This time it's a simple true and false.
Oh, perfect.
All right.
It's a 50-50 flip of the coin.
What I've got here is some 40k lore. I was doing a bit of research, looking at some 40k lore. And 40k is a game that's very interesting. Warhammer 40,000 spans the entire galaxy. It is a huge universe written by a myriad of authors with different biases, different political agendas, different views, different, entirely different lives. And it makes the universe within, oh, look at that, and the universe beyond. Anyway, makes that very, very interesting world. So you get some really crazy, crazy stories. I have made up a couple of these that were from the real world. And at the same time, I have taken some that are from the real universe. And I want you to tell me if these actually happened or are actually true. And Connor, you two can play, as Piper always had. Here's the first one.
Okay, hit me with it. Hit me with this crazy nonsense.
There is a story of Chaos Marines that land on a planet. As they land on the planet, they start mutating. They start getting possessed by demons. They don't know what's going on. As they're wading through the swamps of the planet, they start sinking deep into this horrendous viscous liquid. It turns out there wasn't a planet there after all. And they're sinking into the skin of a gigantic Slaneshi demon. True or false?
I don't know. I feel like you're trying to trick us. And it's like, actually, it wasn't a Slaneshi demon. It was a Nurgle demon.
I'll give you a hint, right? There is only one question here, okay? I want to say there are 6 questions here, and 2 of them, there's some wording. I'll give you, that's it. There are 2 of them there that, it's a little bit of wording, but we're not trying to trick you here.
I don't
It's
know,
not
Connor. What are your thoughts?
I'm going true.
You going true?
I've gone true. I know it feels like a very Slanishy thing to do.
Yeah, right. I'll go true as well.
It is true.
Hey,
Hey!
well
It
done,
happened
Connor.
it happened really early between, it was like kind of between 30k and 40k. It didn't happen quite in the year 40. It was a thing that did happen in the universe.
The Beast Rises era.
All right. The next one
Okay.
is the Titan class, Imperator class Titan.
Mhm.
Is the largest Titan created by the Space Marines, the Adeptus Astartes, the Adeptus Mechanicus, etc., the human race, right? Except for one. There was a larger Titan, an STC, however. An STC it was, actually. It was a Titan, right?
But the STCs that standardized.
Standard template construct.
Yeah, standard template construct.
Sorry, my bad. Yeah,
Thank you.
As you said, I was like, brain fart. Template construct. So it's an STC for it. Okay, and it was a working Titan, right? And the reason why we don't have any evidence of this, the Grey Knights found it, destroyed it, left no evidence. True or false?
I think I want to say false. I think that there is actually a bigger one that isn't on an STC. I was about to say STD, and I was like, that is not true. This ain't Nurgle. What are your thoughts, Connor?
I'm on the fence about it.
You're on the fence?
Because, there has been a history of the Mechanicus kind of having radical sects that overstep the line and border on that heretical technology kind of thing without going full dark Mechanicus. Like, the argument for the Primaris is being heretical because it was technology perfected after the fall of the Emperor is on heretical. So I'm gonna go true.
And false. Oh, here we go.
This one is also true.
Oh no!
There is a Dan
yes.
Abnett book about an STC that the Grey Knights completely annihilate. They actually burn away every part of it and send away every single source of it. There's none of it left, not even an atom of it left. It was completely deatomized.
Classic Grey Knights.
Next. Space Marines can eat the brains and drink the blood of other humans, including Space Marines, regain their memories, and learn their skills. This is in addition to being able to spit acid at will through a specific gland. True or false?
True.
I know about the
Whoa.
spit. Well, that was very quick.
Whoa.
I know about the spit acid thing. You said both eating brains and or drinking blood.
And or drinking their blood, yes.
I'm gonna say false because I don't think it's both of those. I think it's only one of those.
It is a common misconception that this only applies to Space Marine brains and blood, but no, that is true, Dylan. They can eat the brains and drink the blood to learn from any human. It does not need to be a Space Marine. It's a common misconception.
I think I saw that on a discussion about the Kakarodons chapter.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, the Kakarodons. Very big
The
deal.
sharks.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm down 2.
Let's go to the next one.
Connor's on a perfect record.
He's not a perfect record so far, but he knows the stuff. He knows his stuff. It's going to be a bit harder, though, because nobody else knows anything about this character, because who cares? Commander Farsight of the Tau Empire carries with him a talisman of Arthas Moloch. It has a hexagrammatonic ward attached to it, and Arthas Moloch was named after the creator of the hexagrammaton. True or false?
This is tough. I have no knowledge of Farsight.
Yeah,
All I
I'm
know is
completely
he
in
has-
the weeds with Tau.
Well,
I know he has the special relic blade. suit, and I know that he stopped an orc invasion by forcing the Khorne to fight.
Damocles go.
The Corn fought.
And then when the orcs were gone and the Khorne was still there to fight, he just tactically retreated constantly to get rid of the Khorne.
The Corn was
Is that
popping
correct?
off.
Was that
One of his books do start that way. Yes.
Yeah.
That is correct. Tactically avoiding the bloodthirsty, he has no idea what it is. This thing screams and has whips, and I'm going to tactically avoid that.
I think I'm going false.
Yeah, I think I'm going to say false as well.
The answer is false. They are called talismans of Arthas Moloch because they are found on the planet Arthas Moloch.
For a second, I thought you said Arthas Murloc,
I
like
was
from
gonna write-
Warcraft.
I was going to write Murloc, and I was like, well, nobody knows enough about
Thanks,
All right.
Warcraft. Best thing that Warhammer ever bred.
Here's an interesting one.
Yep.
The Catachan face eater
Is that a creature?
is a real creature that looks like a small dog or panther creature. It actually eats faces and lives in human bathrooms. True or false?
I'm gonna go true, because Catachan's about as close you can get to tropical Queensland in the 40k setting.
So are you
I like
saying
that logic.
are you saying that the Catachan? Okay, when you say that it lives in bathrooms, you mean like in lore it lives in bathrooms,
In the
or is
lore-
there a genuine creature that has been named after the Catachan face eater?
I'm talking about in the Warhammer 40,000 lore. It is well known that Catachan will be eaten in their own bathrooms by a creature called the Catachan face eater. That is a small dog or panther-like creature.
Catachan live in the jungle. They don't have bathrooms. False.
You think it's false? And Connor, what do you think?
I think true. I feel like they'd have like latrine areas.
The answer is false. The Catachan face eater is real and looks like a towel.
Oh wow.
It disguises itself as a towel, and as you grab it, latches itself onto your face, rips it off, and eats it, and is real. And
Don't
lives in
forget to bring a
Catachan
towel.
bathrooms. So Connor's logic was absolutely correct. I got a sneaky one there. So, here is the last question. This is a classic.
Wait, are we tied up now, Connor? Are we,
I've not
are
been
we
keeping
3
score.
each?
Let's say you're at 3 each. If it's not, we'll see it in edit.
In the chat, let me know.
All right, you ready? It's one that you might. It's always the last question, isn't it?
All right.
Orcs cannot normally grow hair. 99% of orcs that wear a ponytail are wearing what is known as a hair squig, which they have squeezed, riled up, and slammed into their head so it is constantly chewing on their skull and scalp. True or false?
True.
Is this like legit 40k lore, or is this like fan canon?
What do you think?
All right, so we're tied up. Honest says true. Look, for the sake of this, I'm gonna say false, just so that either one of us wins.
It is, unfortunately for Dylan, it is true.
Yeah!
That law is as old as Rogue Trader is.
Yeah.
Really?
That law is older than Warhammer 40,000 itself.
It's in the Gorka Morka
It is
book.
in the Gorka Morka book as well.
Christ.
They have 2 little fangs at the top and 1 down the bottom, and they shove them into each other's head. They grab on and never let go. And those hair squigs are along for the ride. Well played, boys. That was a great fun little game at the end. Warhammer is a weird world. It's a weird world.
I love orc lore.
Orc lore is great.
I
will say-
wish that Warhammer made more of the fan orc lore into legit lore.
There is a story I hear about the orcs, right, where they got through like an Imperial bastion by grabbing a bunch of like plates of metal and walking past each other saying, I'm a tank, 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 and pretending they were a tank.
Yeah.
And then because they were so psychically focused on being a tank, from the perspective of the Cadians, it was a Lehman Russ driving past.
Yeah.
But I also found out that that is actually fan canon and not real. And that is a
I know.
common
The whole
misconception. But
like
very
orc,
cool.
the whole like orc like willing things into existence, you know? Like there's that fan canon of a squad of Imperial troopers had their las guns run out of shots, their battery charges died, they didn't have any fire to recharge it, so they just did a last-ditch effort and pretended that their guns were shooting. They would jump over the top of the trenches and they'd go pew 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 and make the same sound as their gun, and then orcs just started dying, and it turns out that the orcs just thought they were dying.
You know, there is, though, a true story in the Tau story, okay, where that did essentially happen. There is a story where Commander Shadowsun was killing orcs, and she was following, with her stealth suit teams, she was following the dark side of the moon that she was killing orcs on. And as she followed the dark side of the moon, she was murking orcs left, right, and center, her and her boys, right? And the orcs, as the dark side of the moon hit them, would drop dead in front of someone because they genuinely believed among them that the dark side of the moon was what was killing them, like a big bar of blackness. So there is a little bit of that actually does exist. Isn't that wild?
I love it. I love it. There's the other fan canon of a Mechanicus guy was trying to understand why the orc shooters just were able to keep firing without reloading. And he opened it up, and it was just a metal cage of rocks.
Yeah, isn't that wild? It's just interesting.
Bring
It's
back
so
the
interesting.
lore.
It's wild, isn't it? That it kind of feels like Star Wars Legends, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Where it's like you kind of get away with some crazy stuff.
Just
Love
bring
it.
back Gorgomorka.
Oh yeah, definitely. Then again, Gorkamorka did have the riggers, which means you can't bring back everything in Gorkamorka. That game is old and needs review.
For a modern society,
Yeah,
I would say.
I would say one needs a lot of review if you're playing Gorkamorka, but it is a cool system and a great set.
All right, and that is this episode of From the Vault. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Trent, for chatting.
Dylan.
Thank you, John, for interviewing with us.
Thank you, Connor, for
and
producing.
Thank you, Connor. Yeah, well done. If you want to see more of this stuff, make sure you click like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and get the bell on to get notified every time a new video goes live here. It's completely free for you to do, and it's the best way to support us. More eyeballs seeing us means we have a better chance of making more episodes.
And it also, we don't talk about this a lot, but it also means a lot to us, like, I think, mentally as well. Helps us
Yeah.
commit to it more when we know people really want to see it. So if we don't get any comments and no likes and such, kind of feels like you don't want to see it, and then it kind of makes it feel like we don't want to do it. So we want to do it if you want to see it, because we love you guys.
So,
Thanks again.
yeah, thank you again. Stay safe. Wash your goddamn hands. Bye, everyone.
Hi all.